Actually, many people, they ask us, when did this Hare Krishna movement start? When did it all begin? So because people know that the Hare Krishna movement, it spread quite extensively, through the 1960s, 70s, 80s, by the mercy and the desire of the Lord and the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and his dedicated followers. But actually we tell people that actually this movement started 500 years ago in India. And actually history recalls there was a massive spiritual revolution took place in India 500 years ago. And it was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, known as the Golden Avatar, who masterminded and set this great spiritual revolution, which was centered around this chanting of Hare Krishna. He set it in motion. And he traveled all over India, from the mountains to the oceans. And he turned this congregational chanting into a mass movement. And it was seen. There was hundreds and thousands of people just chanting and dancing through the streets and towns and villages of India, caught up in this tidal wave of ecstatic emotion. So this Sankirtan movement, inaugurated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is still flowing. It is still flowing like a great river, inundating this entire world. And this ISKCON movement is actually carrying the flowing waters of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. So on this auspicious day we should offer our respectful obeisances to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who has this beautiful golden complexion, beautiful eyes like lotus petals, who's brought happiness to this world by spreading love of Godhead through this chanting of this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Actually, Lord Chaitanya's appearance was predicted 5,000 years ago, because 5,000 years ago, Krishna himself actually took a vow that he would appear in this age and deliver the fallen conditioned souls of the Kali Yuga. What happened is, thousands of years ago, Narada Muni, he was observing the symptoms of this fallen age. How religion was being lost, people were becoming more materialistic and bewildered by the material energy. So Narada thought, Narada, he has so much compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. It is said that the pure Vaishnava, their hearts bleed to see the suffering of the conditioned souls due to their separation from Krishna. So Narada thought, I'll bring Krishna to Kali Yuga. Only he has the power to establish religious principles. So Narada, he went to Dwarka. Dwarka was where Krishna was the king of the Yadus. He went there to see Krishna personally, to ask him, what's going to happen to the people of Kali Yuga? So on his arrival, Krishna, he received the great sage very nicely, performed his duties, bathed his feet, offered him a nice cup of water. And then Krishna said to Narada, "Oh sage, you look so sad. Tell me what's in your heart. You are dearer to me than life. When I see you unhappy, I almost fall unconscious." So Narada said, "Oh Lord, as I travel through this world, I do not hear your holy name being chanted. Actually, people have forgotten you. True religion is being lost, and soon you're going to leave this world. You're going to go back to Goloka Vrindavan. What's going to happen to this world?" So Krishna just thought for a moment, and then he smiled. Krishna's beautiful smile. And he said, "I will descend in Kali Yuga. I will take the mood and colour of Srimati Radharani. I'll have a golden form, Gauranga. I will come and give to the people of Kali Yuga Krishna Pram, love of Godhead, through this Sankirtan movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And actually, Krishna said then, he said, I will travel all over India and spread this Sankirtan movement, and my Senapati Bhakta, commander-in-chief of the Vaishnavas, he will come in the future and he will take this Sankirtan movement all over the world. Can you see that? 5,000 years ago, Krishna was predicting that Srila Prabhupada would come in 5,000 years' time and he would take the Sankirtan movement all over the world. Then suddenly Krishna manifested his beautiful Gauranga form before Narada. Narada, he just became overwhelmed with ecstatic love. You know, tears were streaming from his eyes. And he described that when he saw that form of Gauranga, that form was like, it was just effulgent, like 10 million suns and 10 million moons. And then Krishna instructed Narada. You know, Narada, he's the transcendental spaceman. He can travel all over the universe by his mystic power. So Krishna told him, I want you to travel around the universe and instruct everyone to incarnate in Bengal. That we will flood the world with Harinam, Sankirtan. So Narada, he went all over the universe and invited everyone to come and join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan Leela. And, you know, some came from the spiritual world, some came from the heavenly planets, some joined on the earth. You know, we know Lord Balaram and the cowherd boys came. You know, Lord Balaram appeared as Lord Nityananda, Radharani came as Gadadhar Pandit, Satyabhama came as Jagadananda Pandit, Narada came as Srivas, Lord Brahma also came as Haridas Thakur, and so many personalities we read in the Chaitanya Charitamrita came and incarnated in Bengal to join Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. So many others came. So we should understand that although Lord Chaitanya played the role of a teacher and pure devotee, we should always remember that actually he's Krishna himself. He's not a mere human being like us. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his body is completely spiritual, beyond all material influences. He simply came to earth to teach us how to love him, how to practice Krishna consciousness, this bhakti yoga. And he came out of his own sweet will. Krishna Prabhupada mentions in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna, he's not forced to come. He doesn't have to come if he doesn't want to. He's completely independent. But he comes out of his own sweet will. And his birth is just completely transcendental and mystical. It's not like our birth in the material world. What happened is his father, Jagannath Mishra, he had this dream. He had a dream, then all of a sudden this brilliant light came into his mind, and then from his mind this brilliant light transferred to his heart. And he actually dreamt that Krishna was in his heart. And then from his heart, the Lord transferred himself over to the wife of Jagannath Mishra, Sachimata, entered her womb. And this was not just a dream. Soon after, Sachimata found out that she was expecting a baby. And of course everyone noticed how beautiful she was. She was just glowing like the goddess of fortune. But it wasn't until 13 months in the womb, 13 months had passed, that Lord Chaitanya decided to appear on the full moon Purnima. You see that? If you look up in the sky, you'll see the full moon there. And actually on that auspicious day, almost the whole city of Navadvip was standing in the Ganga chanting the holy names. And the reason why they were doing that was because it was a lunar eclipse. In our Vedic culture, we know that, you know, when there's a lunar eclipse, it's very inauspicious. So to counteract the effects of the lunar eclipse, they're all standing in the Ganga chanting Hare Krishna. Of course, they didn't need to do that, because just by the Lord's auspicious appearance, automatically all those bad effects were counteracted. And of course, news spread very quickly that Sachi Mata has given birth to an extremely beautiful golden-coloured boy. And of course, everyone came. People came from all around Navadvip to get the Lord's darshan. And even the demigods from the higher planets appeared in disguised forms. They flew overhead in their flower planes and just yearning to get a glimpse of the beautiful form of Gaura. And it's said that, Lord Chaitanya's transcendental form was just an endless flood of nectar. People would simply gaze and gaze and just gaze at him for hours and hours and hours on end. They'd never seen or heard of such a boy. It's said that every feature of his transcendental form was likened to a tidal wave of just luscious splendour that just inundated the devotee senses and just drenched their hearts with unlimited satisfaction. So they had no power to contain the bliss they felt in their hearts, just being in his presence. Some declared he must be Krishna. Never had such a wonderful form come to earth. His beautiful eyes were like beautiful red lotuses. His loud laughing was so charming. On his lips just flowed this stream of nectar. Actually, the whole of Navadvip was just simply melted in bliss just by his presence there. And just by day, actually, due to Gaura's presence, transcendental presence, people were just, even though they weren't personally in his presence, but just living in that vicinity of his presence, they were just overwhelmed with ecstatic love. Actually, it said that people were so overwhelmed with ecstatic love that they forgot themselves. People were just wandering around Navadvip in a dreamy kind of like condition, like intoxicated out of ecstatic love. People didn't even know what day it was, or whether it was day or night. And at least 3 times a day, the village girls would spontaneously leave their duties at home and run to see baby Gaura. And they would just, with eternal love, they would simply sit there and just gaze at his nectarine, most lovable form. Because he was born under a neem tree, Sachi Mata called him Nimai. And because of his beautiful golden complexion, the neighbourhood ladies called him Gaura Hari. And his father and friends said because every limb of his transcendental body is melting our hearts with love, we call him Gauranga, one who has beautiful golden limbs. And of course the Vedic astrologer, they declare that this child will nourish the entire world. Therefore we give him the name Vishvambara, the maintainer of all the worlds. So, in this materialistic age of Kali, people they're not so spiritually or even religiously inclined. People are very fallen in this age. Therefore Krishna came as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and gave us this very simple and sublime and highly effective process that anyone and everyone can easily follow and become self-realized. That is singing the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, dancing, feasting on Krishna Prasad, thinking a little bit about the Lord's glories through philosophy. Anyone and everyone can follow this simple process and become perfect. Actually, from his very early childhood, Lord Chaitanya, he revealed to the world his mission. You know, when he was only a small baby, he would just cry and cry and cry and cry. He wouldn't stop crying, actually. And because everyone just loved him so much, you know, they felt so much distress to see him cry, so unhappy. And they tried so many things, just like when babies cry, mothers try and do so many things to stop them crying. They even took him to the doctor, find out why does he keep crying. Then one day, some ladies, they began chanting, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Immediately he stopped crying. He began laughing, clapping his little hands. And they said, oh, this is the secret. We do Harinam, you stop crying. So it came to pass, in the house of Sachi Mata, there was just constant kirtan, chanting going on, whenever he was awake. And as soon as they stopped chanting, he would start crying. Then one day, as a baby, he was crawling around the courtyard. And his mother came and picked him up and sat him on the veranda. She sat on a chair on the veranda. Just had little baby Nimai on her lap. Actually, at this time, the father, Jagannath Mishra, he was sleeping in his room at that time, you know. But suddenly, what happened is the whole courtyard just filled up with demigods from the higher planets. Mother Sachi was completely astounded. She wanted to call her husband, but she was so stunned that she couldn't move. She tried to scream, but no noise came out of her mouth. It was a silent scream. Then the demigods, headed by Lord Brahma, they came over to Sachi. They took baby Gaura from her lap and they placed him on this beautiful golden jeweled throne. Then while the priests were chanting mantras, all the demigods performed this very elaborate Abhishek ceremony, and very distinguished personalities from all over the universe came and were bathing the Lord. At this time, Mother Sachi, she was just watching in amazement. And after bathing him, they dried him, they dressed him, and then they put him back on the veranda, and Lord Chaitanya called out to the demigods, chant Hare Krishna, start big kirtan. Soon this big kirtan began, and all the demigods are chanting and dancing. And even baby Gaura, he was just a little baby. He normally couldn't even walk. He was just crawling around. He began jumping up and down with his raised arms, chanting and dancing. Mother Sachi was completely bewildered. She was so bewildered and overwhelmed that she just fainted. Actually, when she hit the floor, when she fainted, it woke up the Jagannath Mishra, her husband. Then she got up and he picked her up and embraced her, and she started crying. And he said, what's wrong? What's wrong, Sachi? Then she began to explain what she'd seen. But then when she looked out in the yard, she just saw a little baby crawling in the courtyard, little baby Gaura, like it was before. She said to Jagannath Mishra, did it really happen, or was that just a dream? This is the Yoga Maya working, covers of pure devotees. So it's actually when Lord Chaitanya was growing up, there was one pastime when he was a small boy, about 3 or 4 years old. He saw a group of puppies playing outside his house. Then all of a sudden, all the puppies ran away, but one puppy stayed. And the Lord thought, I'll take this puppy as my pet. So he tied a little rope around his neck and brought him into the house. So he was sitting down in the house, hugging this little puppy. And when his mother came home, she chastised him. What are you doing? No, you are a Brahmana boy. you should never bring these dogs in the house. You know, in India, they never bring the dogs in the house. The dogs stay outside. They're suchi, they're muchi. The Lord replied, no, this is my pet. This little puppy is my pet. Sachimata told him, okay, you can keep him, but keep him outside. Keep him outside the house. Dogs should not be brought inside the house. This is the Vedic custom for dogs. They're considered impure. So there's just at that time, Lord Chaitanya's friends, they all arrived. They wanted to go and bathe in the Ganga. So Lord Chaitanya, he asked his mother, you know, Mother Sachi said, you know, you go bathe in the Ganga, I'll look after your puppy. He's safe with me. So little Lord Chaitanya and his friends, they went off to bathe in the Ganga. Meanwhile, the mother of that puppy, she came looking for her lost puppy. And Mother Pati was relieved. Okay, here's your puppy. Here's your little... So the puppy went off with his mother. And when Lord Chaitanya returned, he asked, where is my puppy? And Satyamata told him how the puppy's mother had come and taken him away, taken him home. Meanwhile, on the other side of the town, that puppy who had been hugged by Lord Chaitanya started to develop symptoms of love of God. It was madly jumping up and down, barking, hurry ball, hurry ball. It was rolling on the ground with tears flowing from his eyes, experiencing these intense feelings of love of God. And crowds of people were gathering around to watch this extraordinary behavior of this dog. When he was rolling on the ground, actually suddenly he died. He left his body. And from his heart came a spark. The soul came out of the body. And suddenly a brilliant light appeared in the sky. It came down to the ground. It was a spiritual aeroplane carrying the Vishnu Dutas, the messengers of Lord Vishnu. Just then the soul's body assumed its spiritual human-like form. Then those messengers of Lord Vishnu took him back to Godhead. So this is the causeless mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Just by being hugged by Lord Chaitanya, that puppy received love of Godhead and went back to Godhead. So it is said, anyone who came in contact with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would develop this ecstatic love of Godhead. Anyone who simply heard him, or heard him chant, or even see him dancing, or just saw him passing by, would be captivated by love of God. And if by chance he lovingly just glances at you, you would be just infused with love of Godhead, love for Krishna. So this is... we see Lord Chaitanya was spreading the mercy of his causeless mercy. So Lord Chaitanya, he's the most munificent bestower of love of Krishna. He's complete reservoir of all mercy, all good fortune, and anyone and everyone can join the Sankirtan movement. No previous qualification is necessary, and just by following his teachings, you can become a perfect human being. You can actually develop your original love for Krishna and go back to Godhead at the end of this life. So Lord Chaitanya, he's instructed all of us to always, as much as possible, to keep the holy name of Krishna on our tongues and in our minds. Actually, one day, an astrologer, he told Jagannath Mishra, Chaitanya's father, that his eldest son, Vishwarup, would take sannyas. Jagannath Mishra, he became very afraid, because he was so attached to Lord Chaitanya, that he was afraid that Lord Chaitanya would also take sannyas. So he thought, I will stop Nimai's education. Let him remain an uneducated child and just stay at home. However, little Gaura was very unhappy. He wanted to go to school like all the other children. So, in protest, he became very rebellious and naughty. On one occasion he was standing in a rubbish pit, and Mother Sachi came and scolded him. She said to him, you're a Brahmana, son, you're a Brahmana, you shouldn't be in these unclean places. And Lord Chaitanya said to her, what do I know about Suchi and Muchi? Clean and dirty, what is pure and impure? I'm just an ignorant child, because you're not letting me go to school. So he's always trying to get his parents to send him to school. And finally they thought, we've got to let him go to school. So on the first 2 days at school, he mastered the Sanskrit language. By the time he was 11 years old, he was equal to a professor or a PhD. Of course, everyone, the Lord knows everything. He doesn't need to go to school. But he wants to teach us. We see all these pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, it's Krishna himself. And he's playing the role of a pure devotee to teach us the importance of following this process of Krishna consciousness. So he's teaching us, that we need to learn and study. Not just get a material education, but we need to get the spiritual education. Is also very important. We have to get the balance. When he reached the age of 14, now hiding his true identity, because in Navadvip no one knew he was Krishna. So hiding his true identity, he performed his pastimes as a Brahman scholar. And he became professor of his own school. And he would sit by the Ganga, surrounded by 1,000 students. And he would teach them, logic and argument and Vedic scriptures. And he was very strict with the students. Made sure they chant their Gayatri every day and this and that, perform their duties. And after his daily classes, he would bathe in the Ganga and enjoy water sports with his friends. And then he'd go home and have a wonderful meal cooked by Sachi Mata. I said he was very fond of shak, the spinach. And then he would walk around town of Navadvip with his students. During this time in history, Navadvip became the centre of learning. And so many scholars and philosophers and brahmanas and students of philosophy would all come to Navadvip to discuss Vedic philosophy, to get the education. So Lord Chaitanya, he would walk around this Navadvip and he would come up to different scholars and philosophers and famous pundits, and he would challenge them in a philosophical debate. And actually he would defeat all kinds of philosophers and scholars. He was only 14 years old, but he became famous around Navadvip for his amazing skill in logic and argument. And he could defeat anybody's point of view. And he was completely in control of every situation. And he had a great sense of humour with people. People, even though he was going around defeating all these scholars, they didn't feel intimidated or offended. Rather, he behaved very sweetly with everyone. And all the residents of Navadvip, they had the greatest respect for him because he was such a very pure Brahmana, a great scholar, such a kind friend just to everyone. Nobody knew he was Krishna. At this time, he was just keeping his identity hidden, yet everyone just loved him just spontaneously. And they would give him so many gifts, beautiful oils and incense and sweetmeats, so many things. So it is said, just as Krishna was showing his childhood pastimes as a cowherd boy in Vrindavan, Lord Chaitanya was performing his pastimes as a Brahmana scholar with these students. So when he was about 17 years old, his father departed from this world, went back to the spiritual world. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he went to Gaya to perform the funeral rites for his father. And while he was there in Gaya, he approached that famous pure devotee, Ishvarapuri, who is the celebrated disciple of Madhavendra Puri. and he said to Ishvara Puri that, I want to go back to Godhead, and I need a guru. I want you to be my guru. And of course Ishvara Puri, he was in his humility. He said, you're sort of a famous scholar. How can I initiate you? Lord Chaitanya was ardent, and he gave him initiation. And after that initiation ceremony took place, Ishvara Puri came and he repeated the Hare Krishna mantra into Lord Chaitanya's ear. And hearing that mantra, Lord Chaitanya felt so much bliss in his heart. His hair stood on end, tears were streaming from his eyes. He began manifesting like extreme loving sentiments for Krishna. And he went to the local temple and he began chanting and dancing ecstatically, oblivious to everyone. And after some time, he returned to his guru. And he said in a voice, choked with emotion, tears in his eyes, that by your mercy, Gurudev, I have attained the goal of my life. My materialistic life has fled. My heart is filled with love for Krishna. So we know, Lord Chaitanya, he's Krishna himself. He doesn't have to have a guru. But he's teaching again, by his example, that everyone, the importance of accepting a spiritual master. Also, we know Krishna, had a spiritual master too. So it's, so when he got this initiation, he was really, like I said, he was exhibiting all these ecstatic symptoms and sentiments for Krishna. And, when he came back from Gaya, he was manifesting all these ecstatic symptoms of love for Krishna. No one could understand why this sober Brahmana scholar, teacher of 1,000 students, had changed. Word got out amongst the devotees and people that something's happened to Nimai Pandit. Now he was chanting the name of Krishna in great love and ecstasy. Even some of Mother Sachi's neighbours started commenting to her, you should do something about your son. Something's happened to him. He's got disturbed life airs. I said you should rub some oil on his head, try and cool his brain or something. Maybe he's haunted by a ghost. In this way, no one could understand what was going on or could pacify him. He was intense Krishna Pram, love for Krishna. His hair would stand on end, tears would pour from his eyes. Sometimes he was shaking, crying, in extreme ecstasy. So soon after, he went to see Srivas Thakur for some guidance. He told him, some people say I have a disease. I want to know from you, you're an experienced Vaishnava, maybe there's something wrong with me. Srivas asked, what's your symptoms? He said, Lord Chaitanya said, whenever I chant Hare Krishna, my hair stand on end, my voice chokes up, tears flow from my eyes, sometimes I faint. Srivas Thakur said, you have a disease. You have Krishna Pram, love for Krishna. But ordinary people won't understand. They won't understand. And of course, he had all these symptoms. Sometimes he was shivering, crying, laughing uncontrollably, rolling on the ground. But sometimes he would control these emotions to some degree in order to socially interact with people around him. And of course, at his own school, his 1,000 students could definitely see he wasn't the same as before. He changed his teachings. Now, whenever he was now giving instructions in their lessons, everything was somehow connected to Krishna. So these students, they complained to Gaura Pandit, who was Lord Chaitanya's Sanskrit teacher. They said, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nimai Pandit, has lost his Brahminical edge. He only talks about Krishna. He doesn't want to challenge anyone in philosophical debates. Please, you go and talk to him. The Ganga Das Pandit, he came to talk to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu the next day. And then Lord Chaitanya, he took all the students to the Ganges under the trees in a very beautiful place, and he said to them, Nimai Pandit school is the best, because I always give you the best. But I must tell you, after I met and got initiated by my guru, I realized that Krishna is the supreme absolute truth. All other things are superficial. Without Krishna, nothing else has meaning. So how can I not teach you about Krishna? Otherwise, as a teacher, I would be cheating you all. And the top student, he stood up. He said, "My Lord, you always taught us that the goal of life was simply to win debates, to be a great scholar, to be a great logician and debater. But if you tell us that Krishna is the ultimate goal of life, then you have to teach us this, because if you teach us that Harinam Sankirtan is the best process, you cannot expect us to be surprised, because you never taught us these things before." But we don't want to go anywhere else. We want to be with you and learn from you. And all the students stood up and cheered, saying, "Yes, we want to follow Nimai Pandit, learn about Sankirtan and devotional service to Lord Sri Krishna." So we see, this Krishna consciousness, this Bhakti Yoga, it's open to everyone to come and experience how true spirituality opens the door to an extraordinary life of transforming consciousness and awakening our natural love for the Supreme Lord, and also for each other. So Lord Chaitanya, he's the most munificent bestower of love of Krishna. He's the complete reservoir of all mercies and good fortune. Anyone and everyone can join the Sankirtan movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. No previous qualification is needed. Anyone who is fortunate enough to be attracted by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and follow his teachings can easily be released from the clutches of the material illusion and attain the goal of the human life. Actually, not just his students, but also all the Vaishnavas that were present, the devotees, they're also pretty amazed by this transformation of Lord Chaitanya, this great Nimai Pandit. Word got out amongst the devotees, the Vaishnava devotees, that something has happened to Nimai Pandit. Everyone was confused, in wonder. So Lord Chaitanya told Suklambara, "I will come to your house tomorrow, and you tell the devotees to come there and meet me. I want to tell them something, explain my situation." Next day all the devotees came. And Lord Chaitanya said, "Listen, I have something to tell you all. I took initiation at Gaya. It has changed my heart." He said, "When I was returning from Gaya, I went to a holy place of Krishna, and I was just sitting in this place, chanting Hare Krishna on my beads. And in the distance I saw some village boy, some cowherd boy playing his flute. But my mind was so attracted. Who is this boy? Who is this boy?" He started dancing, and he started moving closer and closer to me. And he was wearing a yellow dhoti and a turban on his head. And on that turban, there was a peacock feather. And I was so amazed. Who could this boy be? I was so attracted. He got closer and closer. And I saw he was playing beautiful melodies on his flute. I could see the Kashyuba jewel around his neck. And I was thinking, surely it is Krishna. And he was coming closer and closer. He was smiling at me. My hairs were standing on end. My eyes were filled with tears of love. Then all of a sudden, Krishna came and he put his arms around me and he lovingly hugged me. And I was feeling so much love that I was completely overwhelmed. I cannot even describe it. But then Krishna moved away, smiling at me, and I ran after him. He was running away and I was running after him, and he ran away. And then he suddenly just disappeared. And I was crying, and I was rolling on the ground. And I was, I had Krishna, and I lost him. Now I miss him so much. Now I can only think of him day and night. So in this way we see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's in this mood of Srimati Radharani, was feeling his intense separation from Krishna. This separation in love, it represents the pinnacle of devotion, and it's realized only by those devotees who have the highest qualifications, and it's bestowed by Krishna himself. We see it was displayed by the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, the gopis of Braj. In material loving affairs, one feels devastation and depression on separation. However, love in separation from Krishna intensifies one's love and increases one's transcendental bliss. It is said that, in separation from Krishna, Krishna's presence is felt more completely. They don't just see Krishna in one place. Wherever they look, they see Krishna. So we see, ultimately, they asked Prabhupada, should we also feel separation from Krishna? Are we not such elevated souls? Prabhupada said yes. He said, Krishna is so far away in the spiritual world. And we're down here on this little planet Earth. But we want to be with him. Therefore we should feel this separation. So ultimately, really what we're hankering for in our hearts is for a perfect, loving relationship, which means we're hankering for Krishna. Because only he can perfectly reciprocate and accommodate everyone's loving endeavours. And he will always reciprocate perfectly our love and devotion. And it's only then can our loving propensity be naturally fully satisfied. So it's actually the Lord Chaitanya during his pastimes as a grihastha and family man, he was a Brahmin scholar, teacher of 1,000 students in his own school. But one day he thought, I will bring auspiciousness to all the people of West Bengal. Thus he departed from his home, accompanied by his close associates, and he began travelling around West Bengal for some months. And whoever saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's beautiful, dazzling golden form became completely captivated. And when he bathed in that Padmavati river, the river became sanctified, and whoever bathed thereafter received Lord Chaitanya's mercy and became imbued with pure love and devotion for Krishna. So with a happy heart, Chaitanya travelled around with his associates, begging and inspiring people to chant Hare Krishna. He didn't discriminate who was fit, who was qualified, who was unqualified. He simply invited everyone onto the transcendental boat of Nam Sankirtan, chanting Krishna's pure holy names. And he also trained people and educated them and made them into pure learned devotees. Lord Chaitanya, again, he's teaching by his example. That one has the knowledge. You have to go out and try and give it to others. Then one day after returning home, he was weeping out of intense love and separation from Krishna. This is the manifestation of the most confidential reason for Lord Chaitanya's appearance. He wanted to know and experience the glory of Srimati Radharani's love. So he accepted this mood and complexion of Srimati Radharani and appeared as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to taste that love. When Krishna was just a young boy, he and Balaram, they left Vrindavan and went to Mathura, and then they went to Dwarka, where Krishna became king of the Yadus. Thus, Radharani and the Raj Gopis and all the people of Vrindavan, they were separated from Krishna for 100 years. And because they loved Krishna so much, they were just feeling these acute pangs of separation. Actually, Prabhupada mentions that in the Krishna book, that the only business of Radharani and the gopis and all the Mother Yasoda, Nanda, and all the people of Vrindavan was simply to think of Krishna and cry, because they loved Krishna so much. So Lord Chaitanya, in the mood of Radharani, was weeping in intense love. You know, floods of tears were streaming from his lotus eyes. He was calling out Krishna's name. Actually, at that moment, a divine voice from the heavens respectively said, "O Lord Chaitanya, you have descended to teach the ecstasy of spiritual love. Now it's time to inaugurate the Sankirtan movement and deliver all the fallen souls of Kali Yuga." This is when it all began, the Sankirtan mission. So Lord Chaitanya, immediately he gathered together all his personal associates and he said, "Listen to these wonderful words. Harinama, 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 Kevalam, Kalonastiva, Evanastiva. Katir Anyata. In this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the only means of deliverance is the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. There's no other way, there's no other way. There's no other way." Then Lord Chaitanya began speaking about the glories of Krishna's holy name, and he explained how the name of Krishna is Krishna himself, non-different. Therefore, when we chant Krishna's name, his transcendental name, he immediately reciprocates with his ever-loving presence. Thus our hearts become flooded with devotional love. So you see that one of the goals of the Hare Krishna movement is we want to try and get as many people in the world to chant this Hare Krishna mantra. We want the whole world to be over-flooded with this chanting, because we know that this will make everyone very, very happy. This chanting alone will pacify everyone's mind, purify everyone's heart, and help to really re-establish peace and harmony in the world. And of course everyone will derive the greatest benefit by awakening their love for Krishna. And we see that. This chanting is so powerful. You know, when we actually put Krishna in the center and we all come together and chant, we all naturally become united as loving brothers and sisters. You know, we may have different opinions or different natures or ideologies. Even some people have different philosophies or different bodies from different parts of the world. But when we all come together and chant for Krishna's pleasure, we all become united as one family and all our differences disappear. So Lord Chaitanya has given us this formula to actually, it's meant to be the common platform to bring everyone together, this Harinam Sankirtan. You know, when Lord Chaitanya reached 24, he decided that he would renounce his family life and dedicate himself to preaching his Sankirtan mission. So soon after, one day, Chaitanya, he rose from dawn, he performed his morning duties, and he decided, just then and there, now I will accept sannyas. So he left Navadvip, he crossed the Ganges, and all the townspeople, his mother, his wife, they were just crying in separation. Of course, Nityananda was there. He solaced them, telling them, you know, don't worry, Lord Chaitanya will be returning soon. Then Lord Chaitanya, he proceeded to the town of Katwa. He said he was walking like a graceful elephant, intoxicated with ecstatic emotion due to his intense feelings of separation from Krishna. And soon after he arrived in Katwa, he accepted the sannyas initiation from Keshava Bharati, the best of the sannyasis. And when the people of Katwa, they saw the Lord's beautiful, youthful form. They all wept. They could not bear to see him taking this terrible vow of sannyas. And when the Baba was cutting off his beautiful, long, dark hair and shaving his head, people covered their faces with cloths. They couldn't bear to watch him losing his beautiful, long, dark hair. And after that auspicious ceremony took place, Lord Chaitanya Sankirtan Guru, Keshava Bharati, whispered this sannyas mantra into the Lord's ear, causing him to just toss in the waves of ecstatic love. And then suddenly, this auspicious voice came from the heavens, declaring, "Give him the name Sri Krishna Chaitanya, for he will deliver everyone from the clutches of illusion and teach them devotional service to Sri Krishna." Thus it came to pass, Keshava Bharati declared, that Nimai Pandit's new name is Sri Krishna Chaitanya. And then when the evening came, the Vaishnavas, they all gathered and performed big kirtan, ecstatic kirtan. And it said that, Lord Chaitanya and his sannyas guru, they were dancing together and chanting in the kirtan, enchanting all the worlds. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is the mercy incarnation of the Lord, who especially appeared to deliver the fallen souls of this wretched materialistic age of Kali. And as I said, this Sankirtan movement, inaugurated by Lord Chaitanya, is still flowing like a great river, inundating this entire world. And this Hare Krishna ISKCON movement, which was founded by Srila Prabhupada, is carrying the flowing water of Lord Chaitanya's mercy. And anyone who is fortunate enough to be attracted by this Sankirtan movement and Lord Chaitanya can easily be released from the clutches of this powerful, deluding material energy and attain the topmost stage of transcendental realization. And of course, Srila Prabhupada, he's a direct representative of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When he first registered this Hare Krishna movement as a legal entity, he stated that the prime aim in establishing this Hare Krishna movement was to systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to society at large, to educate all people in the techniques of spiritual life, in order to check the imbalance in values of life and achieve real unity and peace in the world. That was just the first part of his, you could say, his mission statement. Very lofty mission statement. And as I said, Prabhupada, he's planted the seeds for this Hare Krishna movement to grow and thrive for the next 10,000 years. So he successfully fulfilled his aims. Now, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, his dedicated followers, we see so many people, not just in India, but all over the world, are taking up this bhakti yoga, this Krishna consciousness, this tradition, and finding really happiness and real satisfaction and inner peace and fulfillment in life. And we're all examples of those people. And also we find, just so many people in the world now, we find people chanting mantras, practicing vegetarianism, meditating, studying the Vedas, honouring deities, visiting temples, holy places, accepting bona fide gurus, staying in ashrams, attending festivals and utilising their abilities and talents in Krishna's service. Millions and millions of people all over the world. Actually, Srila Prabhupada once declared that actually, I'm creating a whole new civilization here in the West that people haven't even dreamed of. A whole new way of life. A happy life, very happy life, free from all anxieties, and great hope that we will all return back to the Lord's eternal abode at the end of our life. So we're very fortunate, and we feel very privileged to be a part of Srila Prabhupada's new civilization, and spiritual revolution which has been carried on from Lord Chaitanya. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Gaura Purnima.